welcome back to another episode of Education, the Teachers Talking Terror podcast, where we watch a scary movie and then talk about it and then freak out about what it would be like being an educator in that world. I'm one of your hosts, Mike.
And I'm Courtney.
And we are back this week to talk about Courtney's first entry into the Friday the 13th franchise. What better way to start off a brand new horror franchise and diving into part 6. So, Jason Lives, Friday the 13th, part 6 is today's topic of conversation. Courtney, thoughts? You told me today that you had questions.
I do. I have a lot of questions. So
I was thinking this might be a fun way to go through this plot, is just Q&A. Because I've seen them all, and I'm a nerd about this franchise a little bit. So
my first question when the movie started off, and Tommy and his friend are talking about like how they've gotten out of this insane mental hospital. Why is Tommy there?
Okay, good question. Tommy is, let's see, you've got in the Halloween franchise, which is Michael Myers, Jamie Lee Curtis pops up quite a bit. She's in part 1, she's in part 2, she's in Halloween H2O, she's in Halloween Resurrection, and then she's in all 3 of the newest Halloween movies. So Jamie Lee Curtis and Michael Myers are kind of like this yin and yang through the whole series.
Okay.
And Nightmare on Elm Street, you've got Nancy, who is in Nightmare on Elm Street part 1. She's referenced in part 2. She shows up again in part 3, and then she's out of the picture until 7 maybe. Wes Craven's New Nightmare, where she actually plays herself, like the actress plays Heather Langenkamp. We'll get to that at a different time. So Freddy has his kind of nemesis, good person, bad person. But Friday the 13th doesn't have any because Jason just tends to kill everybody.
That's another thing that I had noticed, and that was another one of my questions, is does it start off like that, or... No.
Okay. And so I don't want to give too much away because there are some twist endings to some earlier episodes, but the Tommy Jarvis character originated in Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter. That is the first Friday the 13th movie where Jason is pure monster. All right. I'm going to skip over part 1 because it's got a kind of a twist ending. But in part 2, Jason is kind of this he lives in a shack out in the woods and he terrorizes the camp, but he has almost like a pillowcase over his head. He doesn't have the hockey mask yet. Okay. In part 3, he shows up and he's killing people, but we don't see his full body until... Because there's another character in part 3. By the way, part 3 is Friday the 13th 3D, which is not used with your traditional 3D goggles, but they just do this thing where... They're constantly putting things at the camera lens so it looks like they're in our face. It's totally sticky. At one point somebody's playing pool and they put the camera right at the butt of the pool cue so it looks like it's about to hit, it's supposed to hit us in the face or something. But in part 3, that's the first one where Jason gets his mask. He takes it off of a person who had been using it as a prank. And so he's still fairly humanized. Well, in part 4, he comes back again, but in part 4 is the first time he's the Jason that we know him as, with the mask and the undead characteristics or whatever. And so he's murdering people in part 4, and then Tommy Jarvis is played by Corey Feldman. You would recognize him if you saw him in things. I don't know if you probably don't recognize the name, but Corey Feldman's been in a lot of stuff from the 80s. He was in Gremlins and he was in The Burbs and he was in Goonies.
I have seen The Burbs.
Yeah, and he was a very popular. In the Burbs, he was the pothead kid that lived next door.
Wait, you just said the Burbs.
The
right?
Burbs. Yes.
Okay, I thought you said
Tom
the Birds.
Hanks.
Never mind.
Oh no! He wasn't in the Birds. No, he wasn't in the Birds.
Never
the
mind.
Burbs with Tom Hanks. So anyway, he was very popular in the 80s. He was one of the guy of course I'm so out of touch with like today's generation, but in the 80s he would have been like one of the heartthrobs that would have been like on magazines.
Okay.
And so. But he's in part 4, and he's just a kid, and he kind of understands what's going on with Jason a little bit. Of course, he's hacking up all these teens or whatever, but he had kind of researched a little bit on what was going on with this Jason Voorhees character. And at the end of part 4, Tommy Jarvis puts a machete in the side of Jason's head and kills him. Oh. And so Tommy Jarvis shows up in part 4. Well, then in part 5... Tommy's in a mental institution because he had to murder a guy to save his family. Follow me so far?
Yes.
And so at the beginning of this one, when they're talking about busting out of the mental hospital, that's what happened in part 5.
Okay.
The crazy thing is part 4, part 5, and part 6 are all played by different actors. So they just... yeah. So it's a little... and the reason is one, because they film these like once a year. So the timeline in the movie was over time. But in part 4, like I said, Tommy was just a kid. Well, 1 year later, Corey Feldman wasn't old enough. He was in part 5 in like a flashback, but he wasn't old enough to be like adult Tommy.
Okay, so that makes more sense.
So he was flashback Tommy. And then the actor that played the actor that played Tommy in part 5, after they made that movie, like found God and decided that there was too much awfulness in these movies and refused to come back in his role. So they cast this other guy, Tom Matthews, to play Tommy Jarvis.
Okay.
So there you go.
All right. So that answers that question, which, I mean... Yeah, I was wondering that from the get-go. But I didn't want to look anything up because Casey says that I always look things up and ruin them. So I've really tried not to look anything up during these scary movies because I don't want to ruin it for myself. Uh-huh. So then they're heading to, after they've escaped, they're heading to the graveyard to dig up because he wants to... cremate, basically.
He wants to make sure he's gone forever.
Yes. Because he's having like these flashbacks. Or like, not flashbacks, but he's like seeing Jason.
Yeah, which he did in part 5. Like he kept having these visions.
Okay.
So at least there's a little bit of plot continuity here. My question though is, we're 6 movies into Jason Voorhees now. So he's been murdering people for several years. Like his kill count is up in like the dozens of people. Why did he get a proper burial? Like,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, he
like who put the bill for his headstone?
Yeah, because I'd assume he's probably killed everyone that would have cared about him. So, if there was anyone, but yeah, he does.
He did not kill his mother.
Okay.
But that's a part 1, part 2 storyline, so.
Okay. But yeah, that's a good question. I mean, and he's got a nice casket and everything.
Yeah. I mean, he was
locked up real nice.
Yeah, buried, he wasn't just dumped in a hole in the ground. Like it was a proper burial in a graveyard, like next to his mother, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like, who fit the bill for that one? Does he have a dad somewhere we don't know about?
He probably feels guilty for not being in the picture, so he buried
I guess
him.
so, yeah.
Nicely.
All these father issues that Jason's dealing with for all these years. So.
Yes. So he digs him up, and then he stabs him with... when he sees him, he had had some flashbacks, so he put the he tore off a piece of like the fence or gate or something and jabbed it through him.
Because have you tried to like tear a cast iron fence apart with your bare hands?
I guess it's a movie.
Yeah.
That's what I had to tell myself, because I also wondered like how Jason had all of these like superpowers as well, because he squeeze. He just squeezed something and cracked someone's skull off.
Because he's strong. He got Frankenstein back to life.
Oh,
struck by lightning at the most perfect time.
Okay, so he was not like super strong in the other movies, or has he? Okay.
No, really, no. Like it's like I said, this is really like one of the first movies, part 4 a little bit, where we see like, because in part 2, like when he was still alive, you know, like he would run after his victims, like. You know, like unlike Michael Myers, which just walked everywhere he went, like, and it was scary because you know Jason looked. I mean, he's obviously in human form, but he would you could tell there's emotion there. He would chase his victims. He would run after them, and it was like the tension was really there because you felt for it. And so it was a little nuts because it was like, oh man, you know. But now this is where we really get into Jason just kind of walks everywhere.
Yes.
And just if you happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time in front of him, he takes care of you.
Yeah. And so that makes sense then. So he's got this like super strength. Man, I am going to have to... I've just got a list of movies I've got to watch since this.
Oh, I love it. See, that's fine. This is what the show's about.
I would like to see how his character like develops from first through the 6th one, I mean, and on, because...
Yeah.
So, after he was, you know, resurrected, Frankenstein back, he came back, he kills the other kid, who then
punches right through his body.
Yep.
Like,
grabs his, heart out.
Yep. Jason is a master of anatomy. He, very, very quickly just reached in and plucked it right out.
So then Tommy takes off running. He ends up at he drives off to the sheriff's station, police station. And the sheriff's daughter and some of her friends are in there talking, hanging out right before off to summer camp. I'm assuming what it is.
They're going to go.
Forest
They're going to go work at Camp Forest Green, which is still the same camp. It's called Camp Crystal Lake. That's like the running camp that Jason, because all of his, for the first several movies, all of these murders happen at Camp Crystal Lake.
Okay.
And so that was the
up
camp.
And running? Or is that like one of the restaurants that's nasty, so it gets new management?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. It's like it's this rinse and repeat cycle of here's a new movie. Like in part 1, it was Camp Crystal Lake, and in part 2, it was Camp Crystal Lake. In part 3, it was there. You know, everybody's like trying to reopen the camp. In part 4, it's not campers at Camp Crystal Lake. It's like the summer homes on the other side of the camp kind of thing. Okay. In part 5, that's a whole different story we can get into later. And then here we are back to, let's reopen the camp. It's like, nobody ever fully understands. But then again, the guy dies all the time. So you think, Jason's dead. We could finally reopen the camp. But it's like, it's like this weird, like, these slasher movies get this shtick where, we've talked about it before, like if you have premarital sex, then you're going to die. But in these movies, it's twofold. It's like, if you have premarital sex on the campground, then you're going to die. Like which, you're fine happens. if you live like 2 towns away, you're fine. Like, no problem. Any other camp? Nope. He just stalks this one camp. You know, the only camp everybody seems to just want to keep reopening. Like, but that's okay. It's prime camp. It's too beautiful a lake to let go.
Yes, I agree. It's pretty in the movie. So Tommy gets sent off, and he's like told, "Don't come back here. Exit my jurisdiction." Which, I mean, I'm assuming that did this sheriff have anything to do with him in previous movies?
No.
Or he just, okay, so he just doesn't want him talking to his daughter, filling her head with this stuff.
Yeah. Well, right, because it's the whole Jason's gone, you know. It's like it's the mythology of it for the town. I mean, obviously it's not going to have a positive impact on the town.
Yes.
And so it's more quit bringing this stuff up, you know, that's history and you're causing trouble, so we're going to be movie cops and just be absolute jerks and, you know.
Yeah, nothing
gotta
new.
Gotta love a movie cop.
Yes. Which, like, took me back to the first, one of the, maybe it was Nightmare on Elm Street, where it's like, listen to your kids, because, you know, Tommy's right. But then, like, today I was thinking in class, we were having our social centers, and the kindergartners are all just coloring, playing, and I like to listen to them. And one of them is talking about how at her grandma's house, she saw this spirit come through the vents. And this is not the first time that she's talked about it. It's like the 5th or 6th time. And I'm like, quit talking about scary stuff. Like, you're going to scare your friends. But then part of me is like, while I don't believe in this stuff, it's going. Like, oh my goodness. Like, what's happening?
Well, reach out and see if she'd like to be on the show. That would be an adorable episode. Having a little kindergartner on just talking about ghosts. We'll watch like Casper or something.
One of mine has seen Chainsaw Massacre. And so I told Janelle, I'm like, he's going to have to be on our podcast. And he's like, I want to be on a podcast. What's a podcast? But
I'll do it.
Sorry, a little sidetrack there.
No, it's all right.
So after everything, he veers off and goes to show him the grave, which the groundskeeper or whatever, who I loved, he's such a cute little old man.
Oh yeah.
Had covered up because he's like, I'm not getting blamed for any of this. I'm not.
Right.
I'm not
That's
taking
Jason's
this
grave.
blame. As he's drinking down the rest of his bottle of whatever.
They always have this like mystery bottle of liquor in their pocket.
So he covers it back up, which is, I mean, it again makes Tommy look like a liar and like he's just kind of full of it. And so then this is where Tommy gets arrested. Yeah,
you know, for just arguing.
Yes. And,
gotta love a movie cop.
Which I guess it's better than what the sheriff said he was going to do if he came back in his jurisdiction. Which, I mean, as a female, wouldn't happen to me, but the poor kid, that would not be a good threat to have. Those aren't the kind of earrings that you'd want to wear.
No.
So, Megan has taken an interest in him.
Of course she has.
And this is where 2 people had been found dead, correct? Court and
yes. This is where
whatever girl he was shaking the camper with.
Well, before that, we had a couple
the engaged couple. Yes,
we had a couple of counselors on their way, and they got lost looking for the camp.
Yes, okay. I'm jumping way ahead.
Oh no, this was literally just body count footage. That's all it is. And you'll find that is very common with Friday the 13th. There's a lot of just like, not even segue, just a lot of little additional scenes that just to kill people, and then get back into it. And so Darren and Lisbeth are this couple.
Yes.
Lisbeth is actually played by the director's wife, so there's your reasoning that these 2 people are in the movie. They're counselors that get lost on the way to camp, but they see Jason in the road, and they try to threaten him to get him out of the way, and of course Jason just kills them both. Well, you know, and but that's seriously for your first Friday movie. I can understand the wealth of questions, but you will see there's a formula to these films.
Okay.
And so, this is where we get, you know, the rest of the counselors. Like you said, Megan and Sissy, Court, and Paula. And they show up at the police station to report that these other two, Darren and Elizabeth, are missing.
Yes.
So this is, like you said, where Tommy's like, it's Jason. It's got to watch out for Jason. Which now Megan, apparently, who has the hots for crazy, even though we know he's not crazy, but she's got the hots for crazy, suddenly sees this guy behind bars and her, this is like straight out of like the pastor's daughter kind of thing. Like, come on. So she's like, oh, he seems like a bad boy. And so, they whatever, like, it's just a plot device to get him out of jail. She doesn't know whether she wants to believe it, but I'm really attracted to him. And then another cut scene of just reasons for people to die. The paintball scene, the paintball game.
Yes,
like,
that little
dumb.
Jump scare did give me a little bit, because I thought it was going to be Jason coming through, and then it's just like this nerdy little guy jumps through the bush, and he's like, ah! I was like, whoa.
Yeah, they're just doing this, like, this little, like, corporate level, like, CEO type, like, paintball game out in the woods, where they're all in camouflage and there's this goofy military music playing. It's almost like tongue-in-cheek, done for laughs.
Yeah.
And then Jason shows up and decapitates 3 of them with one swing. And then, like, shoves the face of another one into a tree, which, that would hurt so bad.
But it ended up with a perfect smiling face.
Oh, yeah. It had the, said, like
the Joe Boxer smiley face.
Like, yeah, there you go. Thank you. Yeah, that's what it was. You just, I don't remember the man's face looking like that before he met the tree, but it's like that. This movie is that additional comedy is uncommon for these movies.
Okay.
Which is interesting to note. I did read in the trivia that, weirdly enough, the original Scream movie was written by a man named Kevin Williamson. He also wrote a movie called The Faculty, and he wrote I Know What You Did Last Summer. He was hot in the mid to late 90s. Everybody wanted to make the stuff he was writing. So Kevin Williamson wrote those movies, and they're very self-referential, especially Scream. They made a horror movie about the goofiness of horror movies. Well, I read in the trivia that he attributes a lot of Scream's success to this movie because as a kid he saw this movie and understood the influence of, like, kind of making fun of yourself a little bit. Like, they're already 6 movies in, so at this point, like, they're just calling it what it is, and they're adding a little bit of humor and adding these little jokes, and and it still did very well at the box office, but it was a little ahead of its time because Scream was huge, making the same type of jokes. In this movie, it didn't fire off on the audience, but yeah. So the paintball people, like, they just get murdered because they're in the woods.
Yeah, and I was rooting for that nerdy guy because
But the number
was so
one,
cute.
Go ahead. Yeah, he was very
just like
very dorky.
He was like running to the next tree, thinking nobody could see him, and it's like, oh, bud, you're not sneaky.
Yeah. No. But really, the main reason why this party was in this movie was because they had a very shiny machete with them, and that's Jason's, like, weapon of choice.
That's where he gets
That's where Jason gets another machete, and that was really, again, the whole reason for them to be in the movie.
Okay, which, I mean, hey, it's good thinking there.
Thinking ahead, yeah. So, kids arrive.
Yes.
Which is also rare for a Friday the 13th movie. You don't know, like, most of the murders in the series, if they happen at camp, they happen before the campers arrive.
Okay.
So you're not running the risk of, like, kids being around all this murder. But this one brought the kids in. They brought the kids in, and apparently there's, like, 700 kids and 4 counselors.
Yeah.
So many kids.
And the bus driver was, like, so happy to get rid of them, too.
Well, I'm sure every bus driver everywhere is always happy to get the kids
I couldn't do a bus, but yes. So the kids are here, and the girls, I don't remember what they were talking about, but Court, who is the only guy counselor for all of these boys, has taken, and he's just like sharing this absolutely silly story about how rocks ended up like in a direction that they were in.
Yeah, it's just nonsense.
And it's like, dude, I wish I were as creative with you with those stories, because that's terrible. And the boys are like, if this is the excitement, like, this is awful.
Yeah, this is what camp's gonna be like.
And so meanwhile, is this when Tommy, sorry, I'm having a blank. Is this where Tommy and Megan meet up?
Not yet. Yeah, not yet.
Okay.
I said I'm looking at my plot. I'm looking at my plot notes here. This is actually where the sheriff takes Tommy out of town because of he and Megan kind of making a connection. But Tommy breaks loose, and this is where he leads them on the chase to the cemetery. But the caretaker covered it up. Man,
look at me throwing us all over the place.
It's a Friday the 13th movie. Nobody cares. I don't think any of our listeners are going to listen to this and be like, "Oh no, honey, you don't even know."
That's not what happened.
This is not a movie that you watch for the plot. And so, so this is where, then Tommy runs the police over to the cemetery, and the caretaker's covered it up. And like the sheriff finally gets Tommy out of town, tells him, "Don't you ever come back." Jason that night murders the caretaker, murders another couple. And this is where we get Court and his girl making out in the Winnebago.
Yes.
The extremely massive. Like, these are children. Like, really, Court is 22 at best.
At best.
And yet is driving a full-sized recreational vehicle on his own.
But it was her dad's. Or her stepdad's.
Okay, fair enough.
I only know that because she had mentioned, she's like, if this thing's burnt up, so-and-so's gonna kill me. It's so like, well, you don't have to worry about so-and-so, because Jason's gonna get you first.
Yeah, they're doing their thing as a early 20s couple would do when they have a Winnebago to themselves. Coincidentally enough, the first Friday the 13th movie that doesn't show nudity. This one. This is the first one with no nudity. So that kind of lets you know what the path has been for the previous 5. So if you're looking for late night viewing, there you go, Courtney. So they're making out, and Jason, he ends up on the Winnebago. Murders them both. It is what it is. It's kind of a really cool scene, though, when the Winnebago hits that. And I've driven a lot in my life, and I know you've also driven a lot, and you're not as much because you haven't had your license as long. How many ramps alongside the road have you come across in your travels?
Not that none.
I haven't either.
None that I can think of.
I can't. If I actually thought about it, I could probably name a good 10 movies where there's just a ramp alongside the road, so that when we need to flip our vehicle, there's a ramp. This is one of them. So the Winnebago goes crashing to its side with Jason in it, but he climbs out and he's fine because he's undead. We know that.
Yes.
He's been shocked back to life. And so because now that they're dead, and this happened just outside of town, the sheriff thinks Tommy did it. Yes. And the sheriff thinks that Tommy's delusions of Jason are leading him to murder all these people. So all these deaths, the sheriff, who apparently really, really hates Tommy.
He does.
With no investigation.
Yeah.
With absolutely no investigative technique at all, just starts pinning murders on this guy. And so that doesn't work well.
No.
But Tommy's got a plan.
And this is where
Tommy and Megan show up together.
Yes. Okay. This is where Tommy and Megan show up together, and she like rescues him from jail.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of humorous because when the cop had, pointed the gun at Tommy's head and said like, "Where the red dot is," it goes bang, and then when Megan had held the gun to that same cop, and Tommy's like, "Where the red dot is," and the gun goes bang. So I thought that was just kind of humorous, like, oof, there it is.
I'm not the clown with the big red nose. Like,
yes.
It's just silly, but it's humorous writing. Like,
yes.
you would never mistake this movie for a comedy, but it's like, okay, that was kind of funny.
Which does kind of compare it to summer camp because, like, there were times that I was laughing in summer camp.
Right.
So they're heading out. They're being chased down because somebody has recognized them, or they had come into a block off, and so they like turned around. He called it in, and the sheriff's like, "That's my daughter." Right.
Yeah. Because of course she's driving like this muscle car.
Yes.
And she's real quick to like, when she thinks they're spotted, to like shove Tommy's head down on her lap.
Uh-huh.
So he can stare at her crotch.
And he's just like, "Okay, I'll stay here."
How weird is that for an actress? Because they kept like showing his point of view. So it's like, how weird would that be for the actress to be like, "Okay, you just sit here. We're going to set this camera right here in your lap and just point it at your crotch."
Yep,
but don't worry, we'll just do it once, but we will keep cutting back to it in the film because it's not like anything moves down there,
No.
But it was, busted, So they eventually get stopped. But Tommy's plan was, if we can get Jason back to Camp Crystal Lake and kill him there. Like Tommy's just convinced that that'll be the end. Like, we can murder him once and for all. It's like, I don't know if you can, but you take your shot, guy. You got it.
And I mean, his idea was like, it was well thought out for everything that had been going through his head. This must have been like what he was thinking about in this insane asylum, mental hospital. Because
he got Megan on board with this plan in a hurry.
Yes, very quickly, which takes you back,
she's thirsty.
She is thirsty.
Like, it's disturbing because she's supposed to be playing a teen, but I don't think she's a teen.
No,
we'll put her early 20s, but she's attractive. She's a pretty girl, and she's clearly outgoing. It's like, you don't have any other suitors? You don't have any boyfriend or boyfriends going on? Like, you just pick up guys at the jail?
Yeah, like, none of them are bad enough for her.
Like, that's why you come in and talk to your dad. Like, like, where'd you meet your buddy? Oh, we met at the bar, or mutual friends. She's like, I met him in jail because I hang out with my dad.
And so then they're back at the camp finally, and Jason has just like killed everything in his way.
Oh yeah. Oh, because it's Jason. He's a tornado of destruction.
Yeah, the only thing that he didn't kill was the little girl.
Right. Which, again, he was ready to.
He was, yes. And then I think he had heard something.
Yeah, somebody had made a noise.
And so he spared her life.
Yeah, he's killed Sissy and Paula.
Mm-hmm.
And, and so this is, but Megan has provided the alibi for Tommy. Because once they get stopped, she points out that Tommy's been with me for the past few hours. It's like the Dirty Dancing defense of like, there's no way Johnny was out with her because he was with me. I'm assuming you've seen. Oh my God, you haven't seen Dirty Dancing. I even went the chick flick route of making a reference to a romantic movie, and you're like, nah, nothing.
Yeah,
fair enough. We'll keep it horror here on the show. So
I'll just nod my head and agree with you.
I can't go cross curricular with you.
Nope, please don't.
And so, so Megan's like, it's got to be somebody else because Tommy's had his head in my lap for the last hour.
He's been staring at the crotch for a while.
And so there's no way Tommy flipped over that Winnebago. And so, lock Tommy up. And this is where, they send all the police,
yes.
Out. And, so now everybody's at the camp, like you said.
Yes, everybody. And this, which did you kind of get the vibe that, this more attractive, younger looking cop, I think he kind of had a thing for Megan.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because when the sheriff was like, that's my daughter, that cop was like,
Yeah.
But he was full of himself because he was, checking himself out at one point.
Oh, yeah.
Making sure he looked okay.
Yeah, he was very, and trying to sweet talk her a little bit, but no, he had it out for her, but sorry, he's on the wrong side of the bars for her.
Yeah. And so this is where they all head out there. The two cops end up getting killed by Jason. Yeah. And one of them, his head was ripped off.
Uh-huh.
The other one, I don't
Jason
remember
doesn't screw around.
No, he doesn't.
No.
I don't remember how the other one was killed.
I don't remember either.
But
it really probably doesn't matter.
He was, probably just pulled apart. And then he kills Megan's dad.
Yeah. Megan's dad's death was kind of cool.
After Megan's dad had shot him with that shotgun, and it knocked him down, and I was like, really, all of the things in this movie that have not killed this guy, and this shotgun kills him? But then, of course, he jumps back up.
I know I say this every week, but man, to be able to experience these movies for the first time like you are, it's I'm so envious because, again, I've seen it so many times, and, it's I know better, but for you to be like, really? And I'm like,
I know, I
love
was
it.
Are you kidding me?
No,
this
but
is how
you figure he was boss. He was the boss cop, so he got a little bit more fighting time in. Mm-hmm. And but no, he died.
Yeah, so he shot him a few times and then died, and this is where
we can't skip over how he died, though. Do you remember how Megan's dad died?
I just watched it last night. I should remember how he died.
Jason, literally folds him backwards in half.
Why do I not remember that?
I don't know. It's worth going back to take a look, though. Literally, he, bends him backwards and, he just literally folds him in half backwards. That's
so weird, because, I even remember the one camp counselor's head falling out of the cop car.
Yeah.
When
I want to say,
Megan
and again,
I remember.
Right. Huh. I want to say he was on the ground, and I'm looking it up right now because I want to make sure that I'm. Yeah, because he. It's crazy. It's part 6, and the sheriff is Jason's 53rd victim in the movies. And it's an honorable mention in the top 10 most brutal Jason kills.
How did I?
I don't know. Where'd you go?
I don't know.
Well, we should be okay because it's still downloading to yours and I can upload to mine. Yeah, he's folded backwards because Megan's looking for her dad, and Jason folds him backwards in half, and that took him out, which was cool. And so, yeah, Megan is about to bite it now. Jason's about to kill Megan.
Yes.
And Tommy's plan is, I'm going to go out in the middle of the lake, and I got a boulder and a chain and a fire going, and, I'm going to basically put the chain around Jason's neck and let the boulder take him to the bottom. We're going to drown him.
Yep.
Tommy, you just resuscitated the man. He was already dead. You watched him get electrocuted back to life, and now you think he could die again?
No.
Tommy. So Megan is about to die. Jason's just about to kill Megan, and then Tommy starts hollering after him, come here, maggot head. Like,
which is you explaining that Jason was already killed by Tommy explains why he wanted, because I'm thinking like, why did it care that it was Tommy? Like, Tommy brought him back to life. He shouldn't have wanted to kill him.
Right. But,
so
but no, Jason,
that.
Apparently Tommy's the only one that can interrupt Jason, because Jason's never stopped killing before. So Jason realizes, okay, that's the guy that I want. I was resting eternally peaceful in my grave, and you woke me from my eternal slumber, and now you made me grouchy, and this is grouchy Jason. So and it works. The plan really works. Tommy puts the boulder and chain around Jason's neck, traps him underwater, but Jason just from below just destroys the boat.
Yes,
and,
he
which forces Tommy to go underwater. And so they're having this choke fest, and we believe, Tommy then drowns. Megan just comes to the rescue. It's like Baywatch now. Megan comes in to save Tommy, and Jason grabs her leg, and he's going to kill her. Hey, welcome back. And so she's very resourceful.
She is.
Jason's pulling her underwater. Again, keep in mind, we've watched this man just rip people's heads off, fold people in half, but he's got her by the ankle and he can't keep her underwater.
And that's how I felt with him and Tommy, because it's like they're fighting on this boat and it's like Jason, which again, I get they do it for movie purpose, but it's like, why can't you just crack his skull? Like, just do it. Just rip his arm off. Like, you did it to other people.
You do it. Yeah, I know. You really got to suspend your belief for a lot of these movies. I mean, granted, we know obviously that none of it is realistic at all, but still, like you said, why are you pulling your punches now, Jason? Just do what you've been doing the whole movie. But Megan, kind of gets herself onto the boat a little bit, even though Jason's still pulling at her, but Jason must have taken a breather because he gives her a long enough time to pull start the motor 2 or 3 times before it finally starts. And luckily the blades of the motor were just right at Jason's throat.
Right there.
So chops up his throat and a bunch of just bloody gunk comes to the surface. Yes.
And I do, since you are more critiquey of movies and that aspect of lighting and things, and I know that's something I did like about this movie. And at that point, because it kind of left to your imagination what was coming up, but you knew it was part of his insides. Yeah, but I liked just the natural, the moonlight, the little camp lights, that's all that was happening during this moment.
Right. Yeah, and I've you mentioned, and I've referenced it before, the technology of getting lighting out over the lake wasn't necessary. So I love that they're let's just let the moon light this thing and go with it.
Because it made it scarier too.
Because it felt wow, that you really filmed that on a lake. But Tommy, who of course is already drowned, luckily he's got a second life. Megan, because again, Jason holds him underwater. We saw him lose his breath. He lost his life. He drowned. And then Megan comes and dives into the lake. And then she fights it out with Jason. And then she brings Tommy back to shore. He's dead. It had to have been several minutes of being underwater.
Yes.
After his final breath. But then again, he was in a mental institution, so his brain is wired a little differently. Maybe he did have a little more gas in the tank. But she revived him with CPR. The kids are all cheering because they've just witnessed murders. But yay, Tommy's alive! Yay! And that's kind of how the movie ends. Is we cut to Jason still dead underwater, held down by the boulder, and then we close up on his eyes, and
it opens.
It opens because you can't kill kill him. You can't kill him.
He's,
And
he's anchored to the lake's like ground, and he still is just alive.
Yeah. And I will give you a little sneak peek of Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. Part 7 starts with Jason at the bottom of the lake, still tied down. So a little bit more, I won't say continuity, but
I don't know
at least,
if I want to swim in lakes anymore.
Yeah, well,
like, you never...
not. It's just one lake. You only have to worry about Camp Crystal Lake.
Yes,
as long as you avoid Camp Crystal Lake in New Jersey, you'll be fine. That's where all this takes place, is New Jersey. They never officially say it, but everybody knows it's New Jersey. Now you do too. So yes. Jason is just waiting for an opportunity to return.
New blood.
Your first Friday the 13th movie. I'm so proud of you.
I have now seen everything that people dress up as for Halloween. Well, besides Scream, I haven't seen Scream.
In the first 8 weeks of the podcast, you knocked out Freddy, Jason, and Michael Myers. Mm-hmm. Nice. See,
proud of myself.
I knew it'd pay off. I knew that tweet would work out in your favor.
It did.
That's what you wanted. You were looking for somebody to watch scary movies.
Yes. And I got it.
I was 7 years old. Well, no, I was not yet 7 when this movie came out. I turned 7 the year this movie came out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I'm 43 next month. So there you go. All right, so do you want to go to grading, or do you have more questions?
I pulled up the plot here after I, just got us out of order. And I think that answers most of my questions. Okay.
Yeah, no other character in this movie was of an importance. I said, your questions about where Tommy came from, like I said, his introduction was 2 movies prior, and the last movie also featured him. And so,
because a lot
he had
of it
a
was
3-movie run.
Okay.
He had a 3-movie run, for sure. So, and then the guy, here we are, the actor, stuntman. The stuntman most famous for playing Jason Voorhees, his name is Kane Hodder. He had, we're on part 6, and he hasn't even played Jason once yet, let alone being, the guy who's played him more than anybody. So that just goes to show you how long this franchise is. Yeah. If you're 6 movies in, and it's been 6 different actors. This one has a soft spot in my heart, because the actor who plays Jason Voorhees is C.J. Graham. A name you may remember. I don't remember. Was he around your time in high school or not?
Yes, he was. Because he was a year younger than me, and he thought that my dad looked like Lex Luthor. However you say it.
Lex Luthor's bald.
I know, but I just remember that he got a picture with my dad at the graduation, because my dad was helping handing out the diplomas, and he's in a suit. He really looks like Lex, which, no surprise, but I haven't seen the movie, so I didn't know who.
Oh, it's all right. It's like Superman's #1 villain.
Okay.
And he's just a really smart guy. That's all Lex Luthor is. He's not super powered. He's just a really smart person.
Okay.
So it's all right. But no, I don't see it, but that's okay.
But yes, I do. He was a year younger than me.
So, yeah, he played Jason Voorhees. All right, so should we grade it?
Yes.
All right, let's hit the grade book. As always, we start with your grade. I'm interested to see how you grade your first Jason Voorhees movie.
Okay, so I feel like my grade kind of changed a little bit, because after having those questions answered, but not a lot. So I was going to give it a B minus, because I was like, how is all of this happening? Uh-huh. But after you explained he was Frankenstein back, so he's got these superpowers and things, because it was just so unrealistic to just crack people's skulls and
yeah.
just rip their heads off.
Right.
Again, not a lot, but it's going from a B- to a low B+.
Oh, wow.
B+.
Wow.
I don't know. I'm really liking these though, because
Oh, I love it.
they've all just been so different. But I mean, my lowest grade has been like a C. And
that was just terrifying. And that's only because that wasn't like our thing.
Yes. And it's like, yeah, even though there's not like a whole lot of plot to this, again, it's things that like could happen. And I'm not a very good swimmer. Like I have to plug my nose when I go under. I'm a terrible swimmer. So that end part where he's on the boat looking down and it's like pitch black and he doesn't know where Jason is, that's scary.
Yeah, I got you. B+. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled with that.
But yes, I enjoyed this.
That's awesome.
And
I would give... Oh, go ahead. I cut you off. You weren't done.
No, I was just going to say, and like I said, like after some of my questions were answered, it made more sense.
So after you studied.
Yes.
Your grade was better after a study session. I would give this movie... Oh, if I were grading it, I fall into the trap, and we talk about it every week, of I have to stop comparing. Like, because in my mind, it's like I've seen all the Fridays, so where does this fit? Like, that's not fair. That's not fair. Mm-hmm. So as a standalone, I would give this, I'd probably give it a B-.
Okay.
Because it's short. The plot is there, and I'm fine with all of that. But I could have gone without, like, the paintball scene and, like, really the paintball scene. That one scene alone. The two counselors getting killed at the beginning of the movie still felt very extra, but at least you tied it into they're friends of ours, they didn't show up.
Yes.
Which that's why Megan and her friends ended up at the police station, which is how she met Tommy. So it's like at least they helped move the plot along. They were more than just two dead bodies. But they never found the dead bodies of the corporate paintball retreat. Yeah. Like it literally was just there because the writer thought this will be funny, and then they filmed it, and then that was it. It was just to give Jason a few more people to kill. And it just didn't fit for me. So, like, it would be like if a student was turning in an essay and then decided and then decided to spend 2 paragraphs talking about something random.
Yep, I was just thinking, it's like when you're trying to hit that word count for Mrs. Layfair. And you don't know what to do, so you go, and then on the 4th day, it's like you're adding in all of these extra words. Right, that's exactly what it felt like. Everything else was fine. Like I said, it's still a passing grade. And it would have been higher minus that scene. However, you did say padding the word count like you did in essays. This movie was 86 minutes long. So you take out that paintball scene, you're looking at a movie now that's like 75 minutes long. Yeah. That's bare. Like, there's episodes of TV that are longer than that. Yes.
And so that it really was a filler type scene. Yeah. But I do like how brisk it is. It keeps moving along. You get plenty of kills. They're creative. The characters aren't terrible. You got bad movie cops. So a B- is the vote, or not the vote, the grade it's getting for me. So, what educational lesson do you have from this movie?
Like I mentioned earlier, it was kind of hard for me to stray away from listening to your kids, listening to your peers, listening to people, because it's like, again, yes, this kid just came from a mental hospital, but also, I mean, he's been through a lot, he's seen a lot. Like, why is he flipping out the way he is? Like, what's made him flip this switch or turn like this? Like, pay attention to those things. And this sheriff, I mean, he hated on this guy for no reason. And that's like, have some empathy. I mean, put yourself in his shoes. See what's going on.
We know that he escaped from a a mental institution. The cop didn't even do any backgrounds on the guy.
No.
Had he looked into it, he
him.
would have found he had a medical history
Yes.
of mental disturbances. Didn't even do that. It's just like, oh, you said the word Jason, so get in jail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, my daughter thinks you're cute. Get out of town.
Yes.
Like, good Lord.
Yeah. And it's like, dude, you'd still be alive had you listened to him.
Uh-huh.
Maybe.
Well,
maybe. I mean,
in theory, yeah.
Yes.
Again, they never really did figure out how to stop Jason. Clearly, when they did intervene, it didn't work.
No.
But yeah, there was the likelihood you would have made it outside of the runtime of the movie.
Yes.
So I like that educational lesson. Again, just listen to your kids. Listen to your kids. My educational lesson would be parents, and I know we talk about educational lesson, but this is what I would say to parents. If you feel uncomfortable with where your children are going on a field trip, don't let them go. This camp has been murder central for years. Years. And yet, how many parents loaded their kids up on a bus to go to camp there anyway?
Yes.
There have been birthday parties that my children have been invited to that we have not let them go simply because of the safety that we feel for where they're going. And it's not popular, and we try to figure out a way to kind of talk them out of it, but there's just certain things that we aren't. Again, my wife's a nurse, and so she tends to think a little bit more on the if something bad's going to happen, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I've come a long way in that department as well. I played football in high school, but I'm not going to let my son play football. I know too much about the damages of the sport, that kind of thing. So there's been things where hey, we're having a birthday party at the skating rink. Can you come? And we're like, oh, you don't know how to skate. And kids break their arms all the time, or the neighbors next door have a trampoline and our kids have wanted, and we're like, no. And we've told the parents, they could come over and hang out, but we don't want them jumping on the trampoline. Mm-hmm. Why? Because people get hurt.
Yeah.
And I understand, don't get me wrong, I know that there's, for every parent like me, there's parents that are like, you got to let your kids be kids. And I'm like, but if I'm not denying them a childhood.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, hey, practice a little risk assessment and determine if it's worth it.
Yes.
And so, I've had that conversation with, even a teacher at school, that when my son was younger, he was climbing on the monkey bars and fell. And he didn't get wounded, but he knocked the wind out of him and he cried or whatever. And, and I wanted the full story, but it was, we go out here to practice motor skills and whatever. And I'm like, and my first thought was, I'm not you. I'm not going to try to take the place of your teacher, but thinking, you can't teach motor skills when they have to be 5 feet in the air to do it.
Yeah, and my rule is like with monkey, because this year I feel like so many kids have been hurt on the monkey bars.
Yeah,
so many kids. But it's kids will, and even when we went to the apple orchard for our first field trip, I had kids getting up on that little whatever you call it, the little dome thing, and then they're like, Miss Jones, help me get down, and it's okay. If you can't get down, then do not get back up there.
Right, exactly.
If you have to have an adult come to get you down, if you're gonna hang from the monkey bars because you're too scared to jump, then don't do the monkey bars. You should
be up there. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's and we've let our kids on them when they were younger, but we're usually right there with them. Just to be that little security blanket to if you look unsteady, or I want you to push yourself as far as you can go, but when you feel unsafe, I'll help you down.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And so that'd be my message is, do a little risk assessment. Don't be afraid to be that parent or teacher even that says, I'm not comfortable with this, because you'll look it up for the safety of kids. Like,
Yes.
Jason Voorhees was on the verge of murdering children. Why were the children even there?
Yeah.
You slapped a different name on the camp and sent the kids anyway. Like,
Yep.
if someone were to say, hey, let's go spend the night in that haunted mansion where all those people died, I'd be like, no.
Maybe not.
I like scary stuff, but I'm not going to do
Yes.
that.
But
I hope you're alive
if you change
tomorrow.
the name.
Yeah, but what if we exactly?
It's
what
not
if-
the Bartonville Insane Asylum anymore. It's actually just like the old closed down hospital.
Yeah.
So like,
yeah,
we could
it's
go
the
stay
Bartonville
there.
Mental Hospital.
Yes,
Yeah.
we could stay there.
Just change the name and it's fine. Like, pass. So,
I
but
feel
no,
like
that
so
would
many
be
places to do that.
just a little new paint job. It's fine.
Yeah, under new ownership.
And Jason, you can't trick him though. He'll be there. So, but no, that's a good. It was fun. This was a fun episode.
Yes.
Just the movie was goofy, and that's okay. It wasn't bad. It wasn't scary, but it was still like horror.
Yes.
And I'm glad you got a little Jason under your belt now. All right. Last week we shuffled.
Yes.
And you said that you kind of didn't want to, but you did anyway.
Uh-huh.
So here we are this week. Do you have a suggestion, or do we want to shuffle?
Okay. If you have not seen Smile yet,
I have not.
I would like to do one of the movies we talked about last week. Either Smile, Get Out, or what was the other one that we talked about? Or Us.
Oh, or Us, yeah. Let's do Smile. Because I
Okay.
haven't seen it, and I know my wife wants to watch it too, and so it'll check some boxes.
I really want to watch it as well.
Yeah. We'll watch Smile for next week. And I really don't. I know a little bit. Like, I'm like you. Like when you said that your husband's like, oh, you always ruin it by looking into stuff. Like, I'm the same way. I don't care if a plot is spoiled for me. I really don't.
Yes, same.
There are some movies that if I see critics that I trust, and they're like, the less you know about this movie, the better. Most of the time, I'll take that to heart and be like, okay, I'm not going to investigate it. It'll be fine. And there have been movies that I wished I wouldn't have spoiled the plot on, but ultimately, whatever. It's not hurting anybody. It's just my, but don't ruin it. I'm the one
just
that watched
curious.
it.
Like,
Yeah.
I want to know, because if there's a twist coming up, like, I hate that I don't know why something doesn't make sense.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of it for me too, is if I don't spoil it for myself first, I'm headed straight to the internet to figure out, okay, what did I miss? Like,
Yes.
And so I don't know. This movie's one that I just really don't know much about. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. It's got good 79% of the critics on Rotten Tomato liked it. 78% of the fans on Rotten Tomato like it. And so I've heard good things. I mean, I've read people that are against it, but it's a horror film. I mean, we're the people that have been against the Terrifier movies, and people are out there saying that, give it the Oscar.
Yes.
It's the best movie ever. And I'm like, you need to see more movies. So, Smile for next week. Thanksgiving week too.
It's got a good looking cast, so it can't be too bad.
As in attractive cast? Is that what you mean?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, like attractive. I don't know if
Yeah.
I've ever heard of any of them.
Let's see. Cal Penn was in Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. Who cares? You probably are like, don't know that movie.
Yep.
Let's see. Judy Reyes she's in a TV show. It's one of the Chicago shows, I think. No, she was on Scrubs. Okay, I knew I was thinking of
Okay.
Chicago, like the Chicago hospital one. No, she was on Scrubs. She was oh um, Donald Faison's wife on the show. He played what was his name? He was Turk.
Okay.
Did you ever watch? You know what
yeah.
Scrubs? A
Yep.
little bit. Yeah, he was like her because she's like Hispanic.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the two names I recognize. This other lady, I recognize her face, but yeah,
Okay, the only one I recognize, just looks wise, not name, and it's because he's been on Criminal Minds.
is who?
Kyle Gallner.
Okay.
And I actually, James Heathridge, I think I just watched the episode of that had him in it. Huh.
Kyle Gallner. I click because, of course, I'm in my Plex server, so when I click on an actor, it shows me everything I have that I've seen him in.
Oh, and he's been in SVU.
Yeah, Kyle Gallner was in the most recent Scream movie. He's in Smile. He was in a Wes Craven. Wes Craven's the guy who wrote and directed Nightmare on Elm Street. He was in a really good Wes Craven little thriller called Red Eye with Cillian Murphy and Rachel McAdams.
I like her.
It's a good one. It's a really good thriller. And he was in Jennifer's Body, which came out in 2009.
That's with
and then Megan Fox. Yep. Megan Fox and Amanda Seyfried.
Yes.
And then, but I'm looking at here because all those movies are like 2009, 2005. But then he was in one of my favorite, is kind of under the radar comedies called Wet Hot American Summer. My friend
As
Curtis
Bobby's
and I,
buddy.
yeah, my friend Curtis and I, we could probably quote that movie pretty close to verbatim. The lead in Smile is Sosie Bacon, who her parents are Kevin Bacon and Kira Sedgwick. Kevin Bacon was in Footloose. Kevin Bacon was in the original the original Friday the 13th. He was in Tremors. He was in Eyes Wide. No, not that one. Stir of Echoes. He's one of those guys. Like, he's been in a lot of stuff. And then his wife was also pretty popular actress in the mid 90s, early 2000s. So, and now they have a kid old enough to be in a movie that we're going to talk about next week. So
that's where Judy Reyes is from. Devious Maids.
Oh. See, I'm like, she's from Scrubs, and you're like, she's
Which
from
I have
Devious
seen
Maids.
Scrubs, but I had to look at her picture better, and she's from IMDb. She's Devious Maids.
Yeah. So, but no, I think we're in good shape for Smile. It'll be our second 2022 release in 9 weeks. See, fans, if you're watching at home, listening on your podcast app, we don't just talk about old stuff. We talk about new stuff too. We're equal opportunity horror fans. And we haven't had any, well, we've had one. If you have any recommendations that you'd like to hear us cover, feel free to drop it in the comments or drop it on our social media, one of our social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, and I guess what's left of Twitter. The writing, the way I understand it, the writing is on the wall for Twitter. Since Elon Musk bought it, it may be a matter of days before Twitter just gets shut down.
I don't tweet a lot, but I do like to tweet dumb stuff sometimes.
Yeah, well, he's pretty much run everybody off. Like, he gave an ultimatum a couple of days ago of everybody needs to come back to the office. Everybody that's left that he hasn't fired gave him an ultimatum. Come back to the office, work extra hours, because things are going to be intense, or there's the door and I'll pay you 3 months severance pay.
Wow.
And hundreds of them were like, see ya.
Bye.
Yeah. Like,
wow.
I bet you could find a job in 3 months.
Oh, for sure, yes. Because everywhere is hiring, so.
Yeah. especially like, software engineers and.
Yeah.
All right, so find us on our social media, like I mentioned. Again, drop comments below, share your thoughts. We love to hear from you guys. We've had, like, the Nightmare on Elm Street episode on YouTube kind of gained a little comment traction. I was like, oh, right, things are heading in the right direction. And then it went quiet real quick. So, but we do have people listening. We do have downloads and watches each week, so that's good. So chime in, let us know what you think, because we're coming back next week to talk about Smile. So
this should be a good one.
It should be. I'm excited for it. So for Deducation, I'm Mike.
And I'm Courtney.
And we will see you guys next week.
Have a happy Thanksgiving.